Well, we have finally reached October. Isn't that, yeah, it's exciting. Even Riley's happy. She also wants to go play, don't you? Yeah. Hello everyone, it is Samantha and Little Miss Riley Rue, and we are here today, and Bailey, if you guys saw her peek. It is finally October, and the start of my favorite time of the year, which is the holiday season, because we start out with Halloween, and then next month is Thanksgiving, and then after that is Christmas. Let's just be real here. This is all just a lead up to Christmas. Isn't that right, Riley Rue? Isn't Christmas the best? Yeah, see if she agrees. As always, I thought I would start out this video with some statistics from my reading month because I like numbers. They tell you things, numbers do. So we're going to let Riley go now so I can get onto my computer and look at all of those fun, fancy graphs and numbers. Yeah, thank you. So in the month of September, I ended up reading a total of 4 books for a grand total of 1,213 pages. This averages to about 20 pages per day. You can thank Stardew Valley for that not being a higher average. Of the books that I read, 3 of them were fantasy and 1 was a science fiction novel. In terms of book format, 2 of them are trade paperbacks, 1 was a mass market paperback, and 1 was a hardcover. In terms of star rating, it was a fairly good mix. I had 1 2.5 out of 5 stars, I had 1 3 stars, I had 1 5-star, and 1 4-star book. In terms of book status and where I received the book from, 50% of them were ARCs, 1 I received from an author, 1 from the publisher, 1 was a used book, and 1 I received as a gift, so not bad. Alright, so that's it for the number portion of this video. Now let's get into the books, because that's really what we're here for, isn't it? The first book that I finished was The Dragon Champion by E.E. Knight. This is a story all about a dragon trying to go on a journey of self-discovery, as well as trying to find his people, because basically half of them are dead. Overall, this is a pretty solid book. It was definitely a very solid start to the story. You can definitely tell that you need to read the rest of the series for things to make sense, because when it ends, you're like, what? The only thing my biggest complaint about this book was the pacing. The pacing was not the best. It would move really, really slow. Speed up! And then move really slow. And then at the end, it was like, boom, everything happens at once and nothing makes sense. So the end was actually my least favorite. But overall, I still enjoyed the book. It's definitely interesting reading a book set from a dragon's perspective. Especially a dragon that definitely follows a typical dragon nature. So yeah, Aron eats people. And it's a little bit gruesome. And also a little bit shocking because I'm a human and I'm like, dude, don't eat people. But I mean, he's also, then you're like, well, he's a dragon, so I guess a dragon would do that. So it's definitely a very interesting read, a little bit of a mind bender, but I still enjoyed it. And I ended up rating this book 3 out of 5 stars. I actually have a full review up on my channel, so I'll try to link that somewhere in this video if you guys are curious to check out my full in-depth review. The next book that I ended up finishing was The Woodcutter King by Eric Graham. I received this one from the author himself. I also have a review of this book, which will be coming out soon. But suffice it to say, it was just an okay book for me. The story follows 2 character perspectives, that of a father and a son. The father, Alaric, is from a long line called the Woodcutter Kings, and basically this just means that he protects the nearby village from the forest that they reside by, because the forest is full of malevolent and benevolent beings, and basically he's kind of the last stand between them and his people. But the line of the Woodcutter Kings has a very dark secret, which you find out over the course of the novel. And soon the forest starts to turn not only on the village, but also on Alaric and his family as well. In addition to this, there's also an army invading the kingdom. So you have both of these 2 things going on at the same time. And I think that's the one reason why I didn't care for this book as much as I would have. I felt like it was 2 separate stories being combined into one book, and it just didn't flow together very well. I would have liked to have seen the invading army be a separate story, and the evil forest being another one. I felt like combining the 2, it just didn't have a cohesiveness that I would have liked to have seen. The writing itself was solid. He's definitely a good writer who has a very strong grasp of the language, but the pacing and the story itself needed a little bit of tweaking, I think. So I ended up giving this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the characters 3 stars. I feel like some of the characters could have been a little bit more developed. I felt really mystified by some of Alaric's actions and the way that he treated his family. And just some of his actions just felt a little bit out of left field, particularly when he got suddenly angry. I also didn't much care for the perspective of his son that we follow, because his son was a little bit annoying and didn't listen or think things through. Granted, he was 11, but still, I feel like common sense should have helped him a lot more than it did. I gave the plot, the story itself, 4 out of 5 stars because I think it's definitely an original story. I definitely think it's a very solid original story that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the actual concept of this book quite a bit. The world building 2 out of 5 stars. I felt like I wanted more world building. I wanted to have more of a context of the kingdom that this book takes place in, more of a history of what happened in the past. Like, there are some hints throughout the book, specifically pertaining to the village, but I kind of would have liked to have known about this king that they're talking about that was just killed, and why this other army is invading this kingdom. Like, I just would have liked more of a history to this world, which I think is why this would have benefited as being 2 books or even part of a series. And so I arrived at the overall rating of 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's definitely a solid start. I think he definitely is a good writer that has a solid grasp of the writing craft, but I would have liked to see a little bit more in terms of the overall story and pacing. The next book, which was one of my 5-star reads of this month, was The Witches of Lychford by Paul Cornell. This book was so much fun. It is one of the Tor novellas. It's only about 130 pages, so it's a fairly quick read, and it was perfect for fall. It was a nice little spooky read that I really enjoyed. It follows the characters of 3 women who reside in this small Cotswold village in the UK, and they are fighting against evil forces who are trying to build a supermarket. Which sounds funny, but it's because this village is built upon specific lines to keep out the Fey world, evil creatures and beings who would invade if these lines are broken. So the roads and things are formatted in such a way to prevent these creatures from crossing over. But the supermarket being built would break those lines and would allow a bunch of malevolent spirits to invade this world, and so these 3 women tried to fight against that. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a nice quick read. I liked all of the characters. He left you with enough character history to kind of feel attached to them and feel invested in their story, and I like the overall story of the Fey world starting to invade our world and how they're kind of masking themselves as humans to get this done. And I just thought it was a fun book. I can't wait to read book 2, and I know book 3 just came out, so fun reads, particularly for the Halloween season. Final book that I finished, and again I'll have a review of this one up on my channel soon, is Autonomous by Annalee Newitz. I was sent this one by Tor in exchange for my free and honest review, which y'all are gonna receive now. I really enjoyed this book. It follows the bisexual pill pirate, Jack Chen. Basically, she is responsible for pirating drug patents. So this world is about 120 years in the future from our own world, and the world is basically governed by drugs that can cure cancer, the common cold, that can make you happy, make you want to work, make you do basically anything. There's basically a pill for everything. However, unfortunately, the world is kind of governed by drug companies, and this makes it so people who are poor cannot get access to the medication that could cure them of diseases such as cancer. So Jack basically works on reverse engineering these patents and providing drugs to people who cannot normally afford them. But in order to kind of supplement her endeavors in doing this, she tries to sell a reverse engineered drug called Zacuity, which is basically a work drug that's supposed to make people want to work and feel happy about doing so. However, it has the bad side effect of being addicting and making people addicted to work to the point that they're working themselves to death. So the story follows her. She sets out to kind of try to find a cure for this. And it also follows the other character perspective of Paladin, who is a robot, newly formed, teamed up with his partner Elias, as they're both trying to find Jack Chen and arrest her because she's a known drug pirate, because they both work for the government. So the story follows these 2 character perspectives. It follows Jack struggling with her past and struggling with what she has accidentally done by basically selling drugs in the black market that have killed people, and Paladin kind of trying to discover who she is and her own identity, her sexual identity, and who she wants to be as a robot. This world is definitely very interesting. Though it takes place in the future, there's still a lot of societal issues that she addresses in this book, such as the idea of privilege and how our privilege affects how people perceive us and what we're able to do in our world. She also deals with sexuality, people's identity, racism, and bigotry. It also deals with slavery, because in this world not only are people enslaved and indentured, but also robots as well, because there are very few autonomous robots who are free from their indenturehood. And it basically just so this book deals with a lot of heavy-hitting societal issues that we still find in our own world today. This was definitely a solid science fiction novel. I really enjoyed this book quite a bit. I'll have my full review up of it soon, so you guys have a better idea of what I thought of it and the various topics discussed in this book. But my overall rating for this book was 4 out of 5 stars. I gave the plot a solid 4 stars. I gave the writing 4.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the characters 4 out of 5 stars, and I gave the world building 4 out of 5 stars for a solid 4 out of 5 star book. So yes, it was a pretty enjoyable read. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I don't read science fiction that much anymore, so this was a good one to get into. I have found with science fiction, I used to read it a lot when I was in middle school and high school, but I really haven't that much the past 10 years. But I find with science fiction, I prefer books, science fiction novels that are more character focused than science focused, and this one is definitely more character focused, which I really quite enjoyed. All right guys, that is it for my September reading wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing some of the books that I read and what I thought on them. If you have read any of these, of course I would love to hear what you thought of them, or whatever you want to put down in the comments. Like, feel free to do so, because I like chatting with y'all. Even if it takes me a while to respond, I will respond. All right guys, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye. Thank you. Aw, you're a happy girl. Thank you. You gonna help me?